I always thought my life was pretty normal, just like anyone else's. My name is Sarah, and I've spent the last 17 years married to Mike. We've got 3 boys, Jake, the oldest at 15, always buried in his books, Sam, the middle one, 13, a soccer fanatic, and little Max, 10, the comedian of the family. Our life seemed like a typical family's. I was a housewife, happy to be one, while Mike worked as the director of his family's company. We were doing all right, especially since I had some income from investments I made with the money my grandma left me. It wasn't much, but it helped. Things started changing slowly. It was subtle at first, but then it became too obvious to ignore. Mike, who used to be affectionate and caring, began acting differently. His warm smiles turned cold, and his gentle words became harsh. It was a regular Thursday evening. The kids were upstairs, and I was setting up the dinner table when Mike walked in. He looked tired, or maybe just annoyed. I couldn't tell anymore. "Hey, Mike. How was work today?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation light. He shrugged, barely looking at me. "Same as always, Sarah. Exhausting and endless." I handed him a plate of his favorite pasta, hoping to cheer him up. "Well, maybe this will help." He poked around the food with his fork, not eating. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Sarah, have you looked at yourself lately? You've really let yourself go." His words hit me like a punch. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling a bit. "You know what I mean. You used to take care of yourself, look good. Now, it's like you don't even try." I felt my face burning. "I'm taking care of our home, our kids. I don't always have time for myself." He scoffed. "That's just an excuse, Sarah. You could make the time if you wanted to." I was stunned. Mike never used to be like this. He was the one who always told me I was beautiful, no matter what. "I'm not some model, Mike. I'm your wife, the mother of your children. And that's exactly why you should try harder. Look at you. How am I supposed to take you to any company events looking like this?" His words stung. I felt small, insignificant. "I didn't realize my looks were so important to you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "They are, Sarah. They are. And right now, you're just not cutting it." I stood there, feeling a mix of anger, hurt, and confusion. This wasn't the man I married. This was someone else, someone I didn't recognize. The rest of the evening passed in silence. I cleaned up the dishes, trying to process what just happened. Mike went to the living room, probably to avoid any more conversation. It wasn't just a one-off comment from Mike. The criticisms kept coming, each one sharper than the last. It felt like I was living with a stranger. He'd always been so supportive, but now, it was like he was looking for things to pick on. One evening, we were sitting in the living room. The boys were out at friends' houses, and it was just the 2 of us, which had become increasingly rare. I thought maybe we could have a nice chat, like we used to. "So, Mike, Jake's been talking about colleges already. Can you believe it? Our boy is growing up," I said, trying to start a light conversation. Mike, however, seemed disinterested. "Huh," he muttered, not looking up from his phone. I sighed, feeling the familiar sting of being ignored. "You know, I was thinking we could do something as a family this weekend. Maybe go for a picnic, like old times." He finally looked up, but his expression was far from warm. "Sarah, why do you always avoid talking about the real issues?" I was taken aback. "What issues, Mike?" "You, Sarah. You and how you've just given up on yourself." There it was again, that harsh tone that had become all too familiar. "Mike, I haven't given up on myself. I'm just busy with the boys, the house." He cut me off. "No, that's not an excuse. Look at you. You wear the same old clothes. Your hair's always a mess. It's embarrassing." I felt a lump in my throat. "Embarrassing? Is that what you think of me?" "Yes, it is. I mean, when was the last time you even tried to look nice for me? For us." I tried to remember the last time I had dressed up. It had been a while, but did it really matter that much? Mike, I'm your wife, not a doll to dress up. I have responsibilities. And part of those responsibilities is to be presentable, Sarah. Not just roam around like you don't care. I stood up, feeling my anger rising. I do care, Mike. I care about our family. But if you're so concerned about appearances, maybe you should look at yourself too. When was the last time you did something for us, for the family? He stood up too, his face red. That's different, Sarah. I work all day to provide for this family. And I work all day at home to keep this family running. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? There was a tense silence. Then, Mike spoke, his voice cold. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I need someone who understands me better. Those words felt like a slap. Is that what you want, Mike? Someone else? He didn't answer. Instead, he just walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, feeling more alone than ever. Despite the heavy air between us, I decided to make a change. Not for Mike, but for myself. I joined a local fitness club, thinking maybe a bit of exercise would help clear my mind. It was a sunny Tuesday morning when I told Mike about it. We were in the kitchen, he was getting ready for work, and I was fixing breakfast. Mike, I joined a fitness club, I said, a bit nervously. He raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued for the first time in weeks. Really? That's unexpected. Yeah, I figured it was time to do something for myself. He chuckled, but it wasn't a warm sound. Well, let's see how long that lasts. I bit my lip, holding back a sharp retort. I'm serious about it, Mike. He shrugged, finishing his coffee. We'll see, Sarah. We'll see. That conversation stayed with me as I headed to the fitness club. Determined to prove him wrong, I threw myself into the workouts. I started jogging in the park every morning, feeling a sense of accomplishment with each stride. One morning, a couple of weeks into my new routine, I was jogging in the park. The air was crisp, and I was pushing myself harder than usual. I wanted to get home before Mike left for work, to show him I was sticking to it. I was so focused on my pace that I didn't see the uneven patch of ground. My foot caught, and I stumbled, falling hard on the path. Pain shot through my leg, and I knew immediately something was wrong. Limping back home, I was a mix of pain and frustration. This was the last thing I needed. Mike was still home when I got back. He looked surprised to see me limping. What happened to you? He asked, more curious than concerned. I fell while jogging, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the pain. He snorted. Jogging? More like tumbling, it seems. I winced, both from the pain and his words. It's not funny, Mike. I think I sprained my leg. He leaned against the counter, a smirk on his face. Well, what did you expect? You can't just jump into these things at your age. I felt a surge of anger. My age? What's that supposed to mean? He shrugged. It means you're not exactly young anymore. These things happen. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, you're saying I shouldn't even try? I'm saying maybe you should have thought it through a bit more. Starting to work out all of a sudden, at your age, it's bound to end like this. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady myself. I was doing it for myself, Mike. To feel better. He shook his head. Well, looks like that backfired, didn't it? I didn't have the energy to argue. I just wanted to sit down and deal with the pain in my leg. Mike left for work, and I was left alone, feeling both physically and emotionally hurt. It seemed like no matter what I did, it just wasn't good enough for him. The days following my fall were tough. My leg was in a brace, and I felt trapped in my own home. Mike's attitude didn't help either. It was like he found joy in my misfortune. It was a Wednesday afternoon, the kids were at school, and I was sitting in the living room with my leg propped up. That's when I heard the knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I hobbled to the door, curious and a bit cautious. Opening the door, I was met with a sight that knocked the wind out of me. A young woman, probably in her late 20s, stood there. She was dressed sharply, and there was a confidence in her posture that was hard to miss. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to mask my surprise. She looked me up and down, her eyes lingering on my braced leg. "You must be Sarah. I'm Amanda. I think we need to talk about Mike." My heart sank. Mike? What about him? She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I think it's time you knew. Mike and I have been seeing each other." I felt like I had been punched. "What are you talking about?" She walked past me into the living room, making herself at home. "I'm talking about Mike, your husband. We're in love, and he's going to leave you for me." I followed her, my mind racing. "That's impossible. Mike would never." She cut me off. "Oh, but he would. And he is. He's tired of this." She gestured around. "And tired of you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "This is some kind of joke, right? Mike loves me. We have a family." Amanda laughed, a cold, hard sound. "Love? Please. He's bored with you. He needs someone young, someone exciting. Not a housewife who can't even take care of herself." I felt tears stinging my eyes, but I fought them back. "You don't know anything about us, about our life." "I know enough. I know that Mike wants more, and I'm more than you'll ever be." Her words were like daggers, each one cutting deeper. "You're wrong. He won't leave me. He can't." Amanda stood up, ready to leave. "Believe what you want, Sarah. But it's happening. Mike is mine now. And there's nothing you can do about it." She walked out, leaving me standing there, feeling a mix of shock, anger, and disbelief. That evening, when Mike came home, I confronted him. "Mike, we need to talk. Now." He looked surprised but nodded. "What's wrong?" "A woman came here today. Amanda. She said you're leaving me for her." Mike's face changed, and I knew. I just knew. "It's true, isn't it?" I whispered, the reality sinking in. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Yes, it's true. I didn't know how to tell you." I felt numb. "How long, Mike? How long have you been lying to me?" "It's not about the time, Sarah. It's about us, about what we've become." I shook my head, tears finally escaping. "What we've become? You mean what you've made us become?" He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I never meant to hurt you. But I can't stay in this marriage. I need more." I looked at him, the man I had loved for so long, and felt nothing but emptiness. "You want a divorce?" He nodded. "Yes, I do." It was like my entire world had crumbled in an instant. Mike, the love of my life, was leaving me for another woman. A woman who had the audacity to come to my home and tell me to my face. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wouldn't let this break me. I had my boys, and I had myself. Mike had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. "I'll give you your divorce, Mike. But you're going to regret this. One day, you'll see what you've lost." He didn't say anything, just walked away. And I was left there, alone, but with a newfound determination. This wasn't the end for me. It was just the beginning. In the days after Mike dropped the bombshell, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Betrayal, anger, sadness, they all took turns controlling me. But amidst this chaos, a bold idea started to form. I wasn't going to be the victim in this story. One evening, as Mike and I sat awkwardly in the living room, a room that once echoed with laughter and love, I decided it was time to confront the future. "Mike, we need to talk about the kids," I said, breaking the icy silence. He looked up, clearly uneasy. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. I've made a decision, I continued, my voice steady. I'm going to move out. Mike's eyes widened. Move out? What about the boys? They're staying with you, I said firmly. He was taken aback. What? No, Sarah, you can't be serious. They need their mother. I leaned forward, my resolve unwavering. They also need their father, Mike. And you need to understand what it takes to be a parent. Full-time, not just weekends or holidays. Mike ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. Sarah, this is crazy. You can't just dump the kids on me and walk away. I'm not dumping them, Mike. I'm giving you a chance to step up. To be the father they deserve. Mike stood up, pacing the room. And what about Amanda? How am I supposed to explain this to her? I shrugged. That's your problem, Mike. You chose her. Now you have to deal with the consequences. Mike stopped pacing and looked at me, desperation in his eyes. Sarah, please. Don't do this. It's not fair to the boys. I stood up too, meeting his gaze. What's not fair is what you're doing to us. You made your bed, Mike. Now you have to lie in it. He sank into the couch, defeated. I can't believe you're doing this. I felt a pang of sympathy, but I pushed it away. This was about more than just me and Mike now. It was about our boys and their future. I'll come to see them, talk to them, but they need to stay with you, I said, my voice softer. Mike nodded, resigned. Okay, Sarah, if that's what you think is best. I knew this was going to be hard, on all of us. But it was a decision that had to be made. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was taking control of my life again. I talked to the children and told them about my plan. They approved it, and ever made suggestions. Perhaps I was too cruel to them and my husband, but I needed to fight back, including for the sake of my son's future. After moving out, I found myself in a small apartment, a stark contrast to the house I had called home for so many years. The space was quiet, too quiet at times, but it gave me a chance to think, to plan my next steps. It wasn't long before the first phone call came. I was sipping coffee one morning when my phone rang. It was Mike, and he sounded frazzled. Sarah, you need to take the kids. I can't do this, he blurted out as soon as I answered. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Mike, we agreed. They're staying with you. But Sarah, it's too much. I can't handle it. Work is hectic, and Amanda, she's not coping with them around, he explained, his voice tinged with desperation. I felt a twinge of satisfaction, but I pushed it away. You wanted a life with her, Mike. This is part of it. The boys are your responsibility too. Mike's frustration was palpable. They don't listen to me, Sarah. They're always asking for you. It's a mess here. That sounds like parenting, Mike. Welcome to my world for the past 15 years, I replied, a hint of gloating in my voice. There was a pause, then Mike said, I didn't think it would be this hard. Well, it is. You'll have to figure it out, just like I did. We ended the call shortly after, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. Mike was finally getting a taste of the life he had always taken for granted. The next call came a few weeks later, this time from Amanda. Her voice was high-pitched and frantic. Sarah, you have to take these kids. They're unbearable. They don't listen to anything I say. She practically screamed into the phone. I couldn't help but smirk. They're just being kids, Amanda. What did you expect? They're ruining our life, Sarah. Mike is always tired, and we never have any time together. It's like living in a zoo, she complained. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the moment. Well, Amanda, maybe you should have thought about that before getting involved with a married man with 3 kids. Amanda huffed. This is your fault, Sarah. You should be taking care of them, not me. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. No, Amanda. This is the life you chose. You wanted Mike, and everything that comes with him. Deal with it. The call ended with Amanda cursing, and I couldn't help but laugh. It felt good to see her squirm, to see them both realizing how much they had underestimated me and the life I had built around our family. The day I'd been dreading finally arrived, the legal meeting to hash out the divorce and custody details. I walked into the lawyer's office, my nerves taut. There was Mike, looking like a shadow of his former self, and Amanda, her face twisted in annoyance. My lawyer, Mr. Harris, gave me an encouraging nod as we sat down across from them. The mediator, a no-nonsense guy, started off with, "We're here to discuss custody arrangements first." Mike cleared his throat, looking anywhere but at me. "I want joint custody. I can't handle them full-time." I almost laughed at the absurdity. Really, Mike? After all your big talk? Now you're backing down. Amanda piped up, her voice sharp. "Sarah, stop being such a vindictive witch. You're just trying to make our lives hell." I turned to her, my voice icy. "No, Amanda. I'm making sure my kids get what they deserve. A stable home, not a circus." Mike's lawyer, some slick young thing, tried to smooth things over. "Let's keep this civil. We're here for the kids' sake." I was about to retort when Mike blurted out, "I don't even need the damn kids. They're just a nuisance." The room went silent. Even Amanda looked at him, shocked. That's when Mike's father, who'd been silent till now, erupted. "You ungrateful brat," he bellowed at Mike. "I'm cutting you off. No more money, no more cushy job at the company. You've disgraced us." Mike's face drained of color. "Dad, you can't do that. I need that job." His father was unmoved. "You've made your bed, now lie in it." Turning to the mediator, I said firmly, "I want full alimony for the boys. They shouldn't suffer because their father's a selfish coward." Mike's lawyer started to protest, but Mike shut him down with a wave of his hand. "Fine, she gets what she wants." Amanda was silent, her earlier bravado gone. She looked from Mike to his father, realizing the gravy train had just derailed. As we wrapped up, I felt a strange mix of triumph and sadness. It wasn't a win, not really. But it was a step towards a new life for me and the boys. The dust had settled from the legal showdown, and I was starting to build a new life in a spacious apartment I had rented for me and the boys. It was different, but it felt like a fresh start. One evening, while I was unpacking some boxes, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Mike standing there, looking miserable. "Sarah, can we talk?" he asked, his voice low. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. "Make it quick, Mike. The boys will be home soon." He walked in, glancing around the new place. "Nice apartment," he muttered. I folded my arms. "What do you want, Mike?" He took a deep breath. I've made a mistake. I was wrong. I want to come back." I looked at him, my heart hardening. "Come back? After everything? You must be joking." He shook his head. "I'm not. I've lost everything, Sarah. My job, Amanda left me. I've got nothing." I felt a pang of something, but it wasn't enough to sway me. "You made your choices, Mike. You have to live with them." Mike's eyes filled with tears. "Please, Sarah. I'm begging you. I need my family." I sighed. "Your family needed you, but you walked away. You can't just come back because you're alone now." Mike looked defeated. "So, that's it? We're really over?" I nodded. "Yes, Mike. We're over. It's time for both of us to move on." He stood there for a moment longer, then turned and left. I watched him go, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. But mostly, I felt free. Later that night, As I tucked the boys into bed in their new rooms, Jake, the eldest, looked up at me. "Mom, are you okay?" I smiled, stroking his hair. "Yes, Jake. I'm more than okay. We're going to be just fine." He nodded. "I'm glad. I like it here. It's different, but it's good." I kissed his forehead. Different can be good. We're starting a new chapter. As I turned off the lights and left their room, I knew that this was just the beginning. A new beginning for me and my boys. We had each other, and that was all we needed.